people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders and Oakland County residents just like you. Let's begin, as we always do, with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our top story comes from Frank Witzel at the Detroit Free Press right here in Oakland County in Waterford Township. We were making some national news this week as a California resident reunited with the 21-year-old woman whom just a week ago he helped to guide from the friendly skies down to the runway at Oakland County International Airport during an emergency landing. They reunited on the Today Show, an NBC nationally syndicated program, to talk about the harrowing experience that they had just a week ago at Oakland County International Airport. Chris Yates, hailing from Orange County, California, sprung into action around 4:30 p.m. a week ago in Waterford to use his flight experience to help the novice pilot land despite having lost part of her landing gear. When Yates noticed the loss of landing gear parts on approach, he had called the Oakland County International Airport tower, who allowed him to get on comms with Taylor Hash, the 21-year-old pilot of the plane, and help her navigate to the ground safely despite the emergency. Many pilots will seldom experience an emergency landing in their entire piloting career in the cockpit, but Taylor Hash experienced hers on just her third solo flight. The two reunited on NBC's The Today Show, talking about the harrowing experience and the help of a stranger on the ground for an aviator in need in our local airspace. Really nice segment, too. The team at the Today Show did excellent work, and what a great story, as he just noticed a problem as he was watching planes coming in, had that experience, made a quick move to get in contact with the tower, and ultimately to talk to this pilot and say, hey, look, you've lost part of your landing gear. You're going to need to make a very meticulous landing. And this is someone that had only been flying for a short time. Luckily, he did make that call, not knowing the experience of the pilot up in the air. For all he knew, this could have been a very experienced pilot that was ready for that, or someone that was on their first solo flight, their first time without an instructor in the plane with them. And in this case, he stepped in to help this young pilot navigate during a tough situation. And credit to her as well. Credit to Taylor Hash, the 21-year-old pilot of this plane, who had to navigate what I'm sure was a very scary situation very early on in her time as a solo pilot of a plane. That's not easy to do, to be able to recognize there's an emergency and then aviate, navigate, communicate your way down, as a pilot would say, to the ground safely, especially when it involves an emergency landing, about an emergency with your landing gear. That can't be an easy feat to get yourself on the ground safely, effectively, and without injury, or without serious injury, especially to yourself, and definitely also significant additional damage to the vessel. So credit to both of them. Highly encourage you to go to our website on CivicCenterTV.com, go to our local news page, and read this article. Click through to this article from our friends at the Detroit Free Press, who also have a link to that segment from the Today Show to watch learn more information about this great story, this amazing story that happened just a week ago, and it's getting now national press from right here in Oakland County. Great story there from Frank Witzel at the Detroit Free Press, and congratulations to both Chris Yates, the Orange County man who helped the pilot down to the ground over their intercom, as well as the pilot Taylor Hash on just her third flight, making a successful emergency landing at Oakland County International Airport. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from a team of reporters at Bridge, Michigan, following yesterday evening's surprise announcement from the Manhattan District Attorney that former President Donald Trump will face several charges for involved in allegedly making a hush money deal with porn star Stormy Daniels. Michigan politicians had varying reactions to the news that is certain to have major implications on our local, state, and national politics, especially as we approach the 2024 presidential election cycle. After the Manhattan DA announced that President Trump had been contacted to arrange his formal arraignment on a still sealed indictment, Michigan GOP chairperson Christina Karama went to Twitter saying, quote, "Our government is increasingly being weaponized against citizens. Today it will be President Trump. Tomorrow it will be you," and closed quote. Echoing a similar statement was National GOP chairperson Ronna McDaniel, who called Thursday's event a, quote, "dark day in American history," and closed quote, and exclaimed, in addition, quote, when our justice system is weaponized as a political tool, it endangers all of us, end closed quote. As for those on the other side of the aisle, Michigan Democrats, they were cautious in their response to the announcement of President Trump's indictment, perhaps due to the expected tensions that surround a polarized political figure such as Trump being indicted. Governor Whitmer's office spokesperson Bobby Letty said that the governor will not be commenting on this matter. Instead, she will be referring all comments, quote, to the Manhattan DA's office, end closed quote. Similar caution was taken from Democratic U.S. Representative Debbie Dingell of the state of Michigan, who urged calm in the hours following the Trump indictment, going to Twitter herself and saying, quote, all Americans deserve and are entitled to equal justice under the law, and I implore everyone to remain calm and peaceful. We are a nation of laws and due process, and now our judicial system will do its job. Others from Michigan, including Representative Tim Walberg, a Republican, had also taken to Twitter to discuss this issue with those typically on the Republican side, on the conservative side of the political spectrum, calling this some sort of a political hit job, a political witch hunt. Once again, is another buzzword that's been thrown out there. We've heard people refer to Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, as being an activist district attorney, an activist political official that's using their position outside of what is legally mandated of them and what is legally right of that position. A spokesperson for the Manhattan DA had actually said in a public statement that Trump's attorneys were contacted for arraignment on the indictment that remains under seal, and Trump now is the first U.S. president to be charged formally charged with a crime, that of course not including impeachment, which is a formal charge that comes from the U.S. Congress, which several presidents have undergone, from Andrew Johnson to Richard Nixon to Donald Trump twice during his presidency, during his presumably first term, possibly his only term in office, depending on the results of the 2024 election. On the Democratic side, didn't see a whole lot of people really spiking the football on President Trump with a lot of gotchas and that sort. Very cautious because they've seen what's happened in the past when there's been those political tensions and there's been poking from one side to the other. And so some calm is absolutely needed in this situation. This is something we have not seen before, where a former president has been so heavily pursued on the legal side of things for crimes that they may or may not have been involved in and have gone through the judicial system, especially someone who's presumably trying to, once again, get elected to public office. In this case, Donald Trump trying to become just the second president to be elected to their second term non-concurrently. The only other person, of course, being former President Grover Cleveland. As he pursues the GOP nomination for the 2024 election, this is certainly going to have a huge influence in that. Very similar, I would say. There's some parallels here to the Hillary Clinton email scandal of 2016 that had such a major impact on the 2016 presidential election, and some even would argue that it was a deciding factor in the 2016 presidential election where Donald Trump was elected. What's going to be the case here? Not for me to speculate. There are much more knowledgeable people that do that for a living, that speculate for a living. This is simply how it relates to the state of Michigan. Michigan Republicans saying that this is a political hit job. Christina Caramo referring to it as essentially saying they're going to go for Donald Trump, and the next they're going to go for you. Same sentiment from Ronna McDaniel, who had basically said the same thing. Today it's going to be President Donald Trump. Tomorrow it's going to be anybody else that isn't within the political party in power, and they're weaponizing this as a political tool that endangers all of us, and Democrats urging caution in the response, or not responding at all, as was the case with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Plenty to unpack on this story. All the more reason I would highly encourage you to get the Michigan reaction to the indictment of President Donald Trump by the Manhattan DA. Go to our local news page on civiccentertv.com and click through to this article from Bridge, Michigan, as well as all of our other stories making headlines today across Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan. Click through, read these articles, read their supporting materials, get the full scope of what's making headlines today in our Great Lakes state. And of course, if you have the means to do so, we would highly encourage you to subscribe to these publications and support local journalism. We have a packed show today on the Megacast. Great show ahead on today's edition of the show. Coming up next, we'll talk about a special new partnership between Easterseals MORC and Oakland University. Stay tuned. This is the Megacast.
Like what you see? Beautiful works of art, masterworks of metal, and accomplishments of artistry will be on display near you. All kinds of artists from all walks of life come together to celebrate their skill and appreciate their work's beauty. Hot Works presents the 2023 Orchard Lake Fine Art Show. Stop by July 29th and 30th between 2 and 10 p.m. between Powers and Daly off of Orchard Lake Road.
Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important.
And now the same is true in the face of flu.
Influenza has the power to infect millions.
But it's easy to protect yourself, your family, and your community.
The flu vaccine is safe and effective. And with COVID-19 still around,
it's essential. Together we can face flu season head on.
Visit michigan.gov/flu.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can always stay up to date with us and find all of our shows on demand on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Over the last several years with the COVID-19 pandemic, with school shootings in the state of Michigan, with other forms of trauma and distress that pop up each and every day in our lives for a variety of different reasons, mental health and the need for behavioral services has become a huge sticking point here in our local area and throughout the state of Michigan, and the need for an expansion of those services in the public sector and at our schools in particular has been a huge talking point over the last several years. Now there's a new partnership between Oakland University and Easterseals MORC to bring that to Oakland in the very near future. Joining us now on the program is the president and CEO of Easterseals MORC, Brent Wirth, to talk about this. Brent, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you, Brent?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah, it's an exciting day for you, exciting day for Easterseals MORC as well as Oakland University, as you're set to announce later on this morning this new partnership between your organization and Oakland University in regards to behavioral services, social work, and others. So talk about that partnership. How will your organization, Oakland University, be working together to bring some of these critical services to people right here in our communities?
Yeah, so we've had a long-standing partnership with Oakland University. So we've been hosting many of their interns for many years. In fact, right now we have 13 of their OU interns that are in our master's level social work or counseling program. And so with before the pandemic, we were seeing a rise in demand for our mental health services, but really since the pandemic, it's exploded, and the demand has greatly outpaced our ability to recruit and hire additional because the staff just are not there. We recently saw a statistic that, the behavioral health openings here in Michigan are 50% less than the students graduating that would qualify for those positions. So we thought it would be best in partnership and talking to OU, how can we come together to create a pipeline for the future and help meet the needs of the community? And so together we came up with this program, and it's really has a few areas, and one is going to be supporting 10 graduate level, master's level social workers and counselors each year. And what's great with that is then the only commitment that they would have is to work for 3 years for us. So they would automatically have a career with us. And that would be exciting and a win-win-win for everybody. We're also going to start paying stipends for interns. So traditionally in the behavioral health world, social workers, I'm a social worker and I paid to do my internship. Now we're looking to pay them for social work and counseling interns and to really find and support the best and brightest. A lot of individuals want to go into the field, but they may not have the funds, and we certainly want to support their efforts. And then in addition, the other part of the partnership is that OU is offering up to 50 employees annually at Easterseals MORC a 10% tuition discount to seek an advanced degree in social work and counseling. So it's really exciting. It's got a lot of buzz with our staff, and our staff are doing the best they can every day, and we continue to see more and more. But this will help bring in additional talents to support them as well.
And just to take a step back, let's talk about some of those services that you are providing through Easterseals and MORC in this regard. So give us elaborate some on those services that Easterseals is providing.
Sure. So Easterseals MORC, we were at Easterseals Michigan and another organization, MORC. We merged last year to become Easterseals MORC. So right here, we are supporting over 21,000 people in Michigan, providing behavioral health supports and long-term care. So we support people of all ages that need either behavioral health services or have intellectual and developmental disabilities and need long-term services. So the biggest demand that we have now for our staff, so we currently have, it's roughly about 1,000 team members, about 300 master's level clinicians, and we're not able to keep up with the demand. So most of the demand the increased demand is really in outpatient or outpatient therapy. So we provide services that are in the home or in the community or virtual, wherever it's needed. And a lot of people are really needing that mental health, that outpatient behavioral health therapy, and that is what we're focused on with this initiative.
Yeah, Oakland University and Easterseals MORC will be announcing a new partnership today addressing social work and counseling career shortages in our local area in the state of Michigan. Includes in Easterseals MORC some issues that they've seen with the increased demand and either a stagnating or reduced supply of qualified workers in this industry in Michigan. And Brent, you mentioned earlier on, some of those issues and why that makes this partnership so fruitful for your organization. But across the board in southeastern Michigan, in our local area here in Oakland County, but really across the board around our state, how much of an issue is this, keeping staff in Michigan in this sector, increasing the number of staff available in our sector? How much of an issue has that been in recent years, given the demand has risen so significantly?
Yeah, no, it's a significant issue. We're blessed that we have OU in our backyard and have a great relationship with them. Not every part of the state has universities that they can partner with. So, again, we've grown, we've implemented a lot of initiatives, but it's nowhere, the amount of students that are going into this field does not match the demand. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, there is a mental health crisis. I mean, the trauma that you mentioned at the start since the pandemic has only continued. But at the same time, stigma is beginning to get broken, and people are seeking mental health care that otherwise would not have sought it before. And really, since the pandemic, the world has changed a lot around virtual health too. So the demand for virtual care has increased dramatically. So therapists and outpatient therapists that we may have had, working in the office or in the home now can work virtually. And so we offer all of that, but just the options and access to care have really improved, and thus this continues to drive up demand as well.
You can find more information on this new partnership between Oakland University and Easterseals MORC by visiting Oakland's website at oakland.edu and going to their news page, oakland.edu/OU magazine. And they'll have a story about this that you can read for more information on this new partnership. You can also find more information on services provided by Easterseals MORC by visiting their website at easterseals.com/MORC, easterseals.com/MORC, and learn more about their social work and behavioral health services across the board that are available right here in our local area, as well as this partnership with Oakland University that will be announced further in a formal ceremony at Oakland this morning. We're joined by Brent Wirth on today's edition of the Megacast to talk about this new partnership. He is the president and CEO of Easterseals MORC, serving our local community. And just lastly, in terms of what this brings to these mental health professionals, these budding mental health professionals as they enter their career, obviously, as you said, it's a great career opportunity for them. They'll get at least 3 years of experience in the field immediately after going through this program between your organization and Oakland University. But in terms of boosting the acumen of our professional community in these regards in the state of Michigan, what does a partnership like this do for making Michigan a great place for people to be seeking this sort of health care?
Well, our hope is that this is a model that other providers and universities can partner with to develop more. So while this may seem, the numbers aren't big, I mean, it's only a start. I mean, the demand is much bigger, but we hope and certainly feel that that other providers, the state, everybody can invest in models and partner with providers to create that next best workforce and incentivize them to stay in Michigan to serve our most vulnerable citizens. I mean, we all want that. We all need it, but we need to come up with creative, innovative ways to do that. And I really feel that this partnership that we have with Oakland University is a great demonstration of that.
More information on Easterseals MORC, Easterseals MORC, can be found on easterseals.com/MORC. You can also get in contact with Easterseals MORC by calling them locally at 248-475-6300, 248-475-6300, or toll free at 800-75-SEALS, 800-75-SEALS for the hearing impaired. You can use your relay at 711 for more information. We're joined by Brent Wirth, the president and CEO of Easterseals MORC, with us on today's edition of the Megacast to talk about the new partnership between Easterseals MORC and Oakland University to help boost the number of professionals that we have in our local mental health and behavioral health community through a new career partnership program and counseling services program between these two great organizations. Brent, before we let you go, anything else that we haven't discussed about this new partnership that you would like to say or that would be important for our audience to know?
One last thing, thanks, Tyler. This initiative is 100% funded through philanthropic funds. So Easterseals MORC has been blessed to have some amazing donors that entrust us with their funds to invest in the people that we serve and our purpose to change lives. And so we're excited for this. I mean, this commitment, it's not a small commitment. It's about $500,000 a year, but we see the value just helping not only today, but for the future. And at the bottom, I mean, really the ultimate and the most important thing out of all of this initiative, it's about training and the next best workforce. But at the end of the day, it's really about lives changed and lives saved. And we all know we need more of behavioral health and people trained to do that. And so lives saved and lives changed is probably the best way I can say it.
Easterseals.com/MORC for more information from Easterseals MORC here in the state of Michigan on this partnership and their services as well, or go to oakland.edu/OU magazine to read even more information about this new partnership between these two organizations. Brent, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tyler.
Always appreciate having Oakland University and Easterseals and other organizations join us to talk about their partnerships and ways that we can boost the positive nature of our community, especially given the state of mental health here in the U.S. and in the state of Michigan. Always good news when we are making moves forward, moving the needle forward on addressing some of these issues for individuals all across our community. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, we'll stay at Oakland University for our weekly market and economy talk with Michael Greiner from Oakland University's School of Business Administration. Stay tuned. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Many people are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with mental wellness these days. So be kind to your mind. Give yourself permission to breathe. Share your feelings. You are not alone. Have hope. Talk to a Stay Well counselor for free confidential help 24/7 through the COVID-19 hotline.
Ronnie started doing prescription pills at the age of 15, and by 19, he died. If your child is struggling with drug use, try not to be too proud to reach out for help. Don't be worried about what the neighbor will think or your family. Just get your child the help they need. Sometimes it's the hard road to take, but the hard road is nothing compared to living with the fact that your child is no longer with you.
There's hope and help at drugfree.org.
Watch Civic Center TV with our brand new live captions. To turn on live captions, go to civiccentertv.com and click Watch Live. In your web browser, click on the Options tab in the top right and find the Accessibilities tab. Then just switch on live captions to heighten your enjoyment of our local programming. Thank you so much for watching Civic Center TV.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more on our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find information on all of our partnering stations all across the Great Lakes state, including My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and each individual interview segment on demand as well. All that's on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now on the program, as he does each and every week, to talk about the latest in the markets and the economy and how that affects you right here in Michigan and in Oakland County, is Michael Greiner, Assistant Professor of Management at Oakland University's School of Business Administration. Michael, thanks for being back with us this week.
It's great to be here. Happy Friday, Tyler.
Yeah, happy Friday to you as well. Not so much of a happy week for bank regulators up on Capitol Hill getting grilled by Congress, especially after recent bank failures and a number of issues. What's come along with that has been some banking worries about the increase in the price of gold, as some getting scared about their funds in the bank, as is natural when you have these sorts of issues, as well as potentially new regulations being put on banks. Where does all this stand at this time, especially after these hearings this week?
Yeah, crazy times. You know, it was amazing watching the hearings on Capitol Hill, because it kind of reminded me just the way politics happens so much of the time. You know, you have this crisis and suddenly everybody's standing there pointing fingers at everybody else. You had members of Congress who, of course, a few years ago passed legislation that actually made it easier for banks this size to kind of be able to engage in this kind of risky investment and not have the kind of supervision that that had originally been required by the Dodd-Frank Act. But you had the legislators pointing at the regulators, you know, and the regulators saying, well, wait a minute, you took away some of these tools that were at our disposal, and really it's the fault of the bank managers. And the bank managers saying, oh, you know, well, we were doing the best we could, or for that matter, having their lawyers basically pleading the fifth. So it was pretty crazy to watch. But one thing that seems to be coming out of it now is that the president is saying that he'd like to see more regulation on these mid-sized banks. And just by way of history, people may remember that back in the wake of the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009, there was the Dodd-Frank Financial Regulation Act passed. And what that bill did is it required certain additional controls over larger banks that were considered systemic risks, that were large enough that if they fail, that they have the potential to drag down the whole economy with it. Well, the number that they set for that size of a bank was $50 billion of assets. Sounds like a lot of money, but in the banking world, it's actually not all that much money. So back in 2019, then, you had Congress, pretty much on a bipartisan basis, actually, pass legislation that increased that limit up to $250 billion. Well, what that accomplished is it made it that Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, both banks that recently failed, as well as some of the other ones that are really on the bubble now, no longer had the same kind of regulation that is experienced by the larger banks, which right now are incredibly safe. And so as a result of that, you've seen where these banks don't get the kind of oversight that you would have expected. And if there's anything that was kind of shocking that came out of these hearings, it's the fact that regulators at the Federal Reserve knew that there were issues at Silicon Valley Bank in particular more than a year before this happened. And they felt that they weren't really able to do anything. They had notified the bank managers about it. And there are going to be questions as to whether the bank managers can be prosecuted for any potential financial crimes. There's some evidence that there were some sales of stocks slightly before the bank collapsed, which could be an example of insider trading. But fundamentally, it comes down to the fact that there's this sense that the regulators just don't have the tools that they need. Well, of course, as we know, in the last election, the Republicans took over the House of Representatives. So there's this sense that new regulations probably aren't likely to pass Congress. So now what President Biden is saying is that he's going to try to actually accomplish some of these regulatory changes more on the administrative level, where they won't need to go to Congress to ask for some of this help. Now, part of the problem, though, is a lot of the ability to exert these financial controls actually resides in the Federal Reserve, which, as we know, is completely independent from the executive branch and Congress and that type of thing. So basically, you've got a situation where the president can ask nicely the Fed to try to get some kind of relief with this, and then it's going to really be up to the Fed as to what they're going to do. My guess is they will probably want to get some additional tools to help them regulate the banks a bit better, because certainly one thing that is true, and that was certainly demonstrated in this in these hearings last week, is that this has turned into a big black eye for just about everybody who's involved in it.
We're joined by Michael Greiner, Assistant Professor of Management at Oakland University's School of Business Administration, as he does each and every week on Friday at 10:25 for our weekly market and economy segment on the Megacast. Also, in recent weeks, we've seen protests pop up here and there in Israel and in France. Those have definitely escalated to some extent, especially in France. In recent weeks, and we know that these can have world economic impacts, as we saw just a few years ago when we had the truckers protesting in Canada, and how much that affected us right here, even in Michigan. What can we expect as far as global impacts of these continued protests, especially in France, which is a major economic trade partner in Europe and, of course, with the U.S.?
It is. It's true. And I'll tell you, I mean, it's when I saw this happening, I kind of, slapped myself in the head and said, oh, my gosh, one more thing that could be going wrong with the global economy. Ever since we had the COVID crisis and the invasion in Ukraine, it seemed like one thing after another that has just been coming out of left field to cause problems for us. I mean, who would have predicted that we'd be having all these problems, for example, with bird flu, causing problems now with us having access to eggs and chicken? I mean, who would have known? But as it turns out, it's just one more thing. This one, though, seems like a bit more of a self-inflicted wound, both on the part of the French and the Israelis. Because what these protests are based on are some issues with feelings that they're losing their democratic voice in these countries. For example, in France, what's happening is that there's a move by the president there, Emmanuel Macron, to increase the retirement age from 62 up to 64. Now, to us Americans, that may seem like kind of a duh move because, 62 seems awfully young to be retiring. But yet, still people do here in the United States. And France is faced with a particular problem where they're much further along than the United States is, or even France is, in terms of having a declining birth rate. They've been struggling with this for a number of years now and doing everything they can to try to increase the birth rate, but they're barely achieving essentially what we call a replacement rate with their population. So as a result of that, you don't have the amount of younger people still working enough to support the people who are retiring. So what's happened is you have now big budget deficits in France. Sound familiar? And one of the ways that the president has tried to address this is by increasing the retirement age. Well, he actually had campaigned on this when he ran for re-election in the last election last year. So it seems like it shouldn't be a surprise. But as it turns out, when he actually tried to push through this legislation, there was a huge negative reaction. And the Assemblée Nationale, essentially their Congress in France, seemed like they were going to vote against it. Well, as it turns out, Emmanuel Macron has a has a constitutional tool that he could use to essentially implement this law without having to go through the legislative body. And he did that, prompting a lot of outrage among people across the country and basically national strikes shutting down the country. And that then is going to have, as you say, some real ramifications, especially across Europe, because you have to remember, France is the second largest economy in the European Union, a very substantial trading partner to the United States. And so, you know, any businesses that are doing business in France, they're going to be impacted by this. But you can't underestimate also the impact of Israel. Israel is also a very substantial trading partner of ours, a very close ally of ours. And as a result of that, they've been having nationwide strikes that literally shut down the airport to protest the plans by the prime minister in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, to try to essentially change the rules to stop the power of the legislative body to be able, of the judicial body to essentially step in and say that certain laws are unconstitutional, kind of the way that we do here in the United States. In Israel, though, they're kind of hampered by the fact that they actually don't have a constitution. So as a result of that, everything is kind of done based upon laws, and they're very easy to change, much easier to change, say, than here in the United States where we have our constitution. And so there were these nationwide strikes that shut down the airports, shut down the government, shut down pretty much everything in Israel. And as a result of that, the government has basically backed down a little bit on their plans for this judicial overhaul. But we'll see what happens. I mean, you see pictures from these countries, like from France, with garbage just being left on the streets as a result of the fact that garbage men are on strike and not picking up the garbage anymore. And it just gives you a sense of the chaos that this is creating in those countries. But as you say, this is not anymore an isolated economy. This is a global economy. And here in the United States, when you see such disruption and such important trading partners, it's going to impact us here as well.
We're joined by Michael Greiner on today's edition of the Megacast, as we are each and every Friday for our weekly market and economy segment, as we're talking about world implications on the U.S. and therefore the Michigan economy. And something we're thinking about going forward is the use of AI in our economy in a variety of different sectors. It's certainly become more of a talking point as we've seen the rise of ChatGPT and its popularity, particularly in recent months, although this has been a technology that's been around for a few years. The thought about the advancement of artificial and alternative intelligence being able to be utilized in a variety of different economic sectors, that's having some people question what jobs are most exposed to this going forward and could be either heavily impacted or potentially even eliminated by AI. Where does that stand right now? What sectors are really looking at this as something they can utilize in the future, and what employees or professionals then are maybe expressing some concerns?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. And, as a child of the 80s, I was reminded, reading a lot of these articles and these reports of the TV show Max Headroom that some of our older viewers might remember as well, where they had essentially an AI bot talking on TV. So I'm hoping they don't have that happen anytime soon. But I think that there is really this potential change that's coming our way that is really far above and beyond what a lot of people are expecting. I remember a few years ago reading some articles where different economists were talking about the fact that they thought, we've kind of reached the end of new changes that will really be able to revolutionize the way our economy operates and create all kinds of new opportunities for growth. And, I got to tell you, I was always kind of skeptical of those reports, because who would have predicted that the internet would have had as big an impact as it did before essentially it happened? Well, I think that's the stage that we're at right now with this ChatGPT and the other artificial intelligence. I think that it's hard to say the level of impact it's going to have. And the thing that I really expect is the best way to describe it is like as a force multiplier, where it's going to be able to make people a lot more efficient in a lot of jobs now that are very, frankly, labor intensive. And they're labor intensive because there's this impression that only people can do these jobs. So, for example, things like accountants, writers, computer programmers even, things like this have been shown to be able to be done quite effectively by artificial intelligence. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that we can just kind of turn on artificial intelligence and let it take over, because they make mistakes. They don't have the level of judgment or creativity or that type of thing that people have. You have to remember, when saying artificial intelligence is a little bit of a misnomer. Basically, what these programs are doing is that they go across the internet and gather together information from all kinds of written documents out there. And then based upon that, they're able to consolidate information from these documents very quickly and then turn that into things that are responsive to our requests. Well, the truth of the matter is, though, all they're doing really is regurgitating what's already out there. Now, that being said, they're regurgitating it very well and very effectively, but it's still regurgitation. It's not real creativity that you're seeing. And it's hard for me to imagine that computers really will ever be able to do that. So there's still a need for people to be able to kind of oversee it and read it. But what it does do is mean that you're able to have one person say, rather than having 5 writers, maybe you can have one writer. And what they do is that they get prompts from this artificial intelligence, maybe have the artificial intelligence proofread things, maybe even generate first drafts. And then the person is able to take those things and kind of see how they, see how they sound. That's an important step, because I'm sure many of our viewers have seen there have been reports about like some reporters who've gone and tried to have conversations with these different chatbots online. And some of the stuff that has come through has been downright weird or even disturbing. And that's because, again, the computers don't have the level of judgment or human creativity that we have. However, the fact is they can generate a lot of written documentation very quickly. And if then you have people read them over and essentially edit them and make sure they're appropriate, then the people can be a lot more productive than they would have been otherwise. So you can imagine situations where, say, you had one radiologist, say, in a hospital reading the X-rays, or several radiologists in a hospital reading the X-rays. Suddenly, you'll be able to have one radiologist. You'll have the computers read the X-rays, and then the radiologist will just review to make sure that there aren't mistakes being made or that there aren't things being missed that might require a little bit of creativity. Similarly, you could imagine, as I say, one writer rather than 5 writers, and the one writer will just kind of be reviewing what's being produced by these artificial intelligence bots and making sure that everything seems appropriate. And so what that'll do is that'll really decrease the need for a lot of these professions. And what's I think kind of disconcerting to a lot of us about this is the kind of jobs that they're talking about now, though, are more jobs that require higher training and higher levels of education generally. In the past, we were used to technology simply displacing people who, did more routine tasks that were more repetitive. But now we're looking at technology actually being able to displace people who have higher levels of education and training. And so that's kind of a scary thing to a lot of us out there. And it's really going to be interesting to see the way that this evolves going forward.
And we'll see how that evolves. We'll keep up with that, and we'll have probably plenty more discussions on the impact of AI in our markets and in our economy very soon on our weekly segment with Michael Greiner here on the Megacast. Michael, thanks as always for joining us.
Great being here. Have a great weekend, Tyler.
You as well. Every Friday, you can join Michael Greiner and Oakland University with us to discuss the latest in the markets and economy right here on the Megacast. And always keep up to date on these segments going back months and months by visiting us on civiccentertv.com/megacast. We'll take a break on the program. On the other side, we'll be joined by one of over 330 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform and making an impact right here in Oakland County. Stay tuned. This is the Megacast.
Stop by West Bloomfield Town Hall June 14th and get your health in check at the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. Over 40 businesses, organizations, and vendors take the time to showcase healthy practices, tips, and resources for the community. Young or old, there's something for everyone and everybody. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, June 14th, the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
When you have a gambling problem, you have a money problem. Don't let your gambling cause you financial hardship. If you or someone you love is struggling with gambling, we can help. Get free confidential counseling and win your life back. Learn more at michigan.gov/problemgambling. When the temperatures are chilly, being together warms the soul. Keep the winter fun going. Help protect yourself and those around you by keeping your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
1 in 4 Michigan homes has high levels of radon, a naturally occurring radioactive gas known to cause lung cancer. It doesn't matter where you live or what type of home you have. You won't even know it's there unless you test. So don't wait. Testing is cheap and easy. And if there's a problem, it's simple to fix. Visit michigan.gov/radon to learn more.
We took action. Will you?
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more about our program and always stay up to date with us on civiccentertv.com/megacast. We'll find information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes state, including our co-flagship My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and each individual segment on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now is one of over 330 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform. Jacki Wolverton is the Executive Director of the Coddiewomple Fund and joins us now on the program. Jacki, thanks for being with us.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, good to have you on with us. So first off, tell us more about the background of the Coddiewomple Fund and the programs and services that you provide in our local area.
For sure. So the Coddiewomple Fund really came to be through my own mental health struggles. I struggled to afford therapy, whether that looked like when I was a broke college student, as well as in my career having full insurance with out-of-pocket cost $7,500 for my family, a burden that for many years was just one that I couldn't take on. Through the years, I had mental health struggles from my past, as well as becoming a mom. And through that, I had to seek care because I was really struggling. And in doing so, therapy for me really changed my life. And I recognized the benefits of it. While I spoke to families and friends, I realized that cost was a significant reason why many were not seeking care, as well as it wasn't just in my little group, but 42% of U.S. adults don't seek care due to cost. So it was really with this that my own struggles, seeing the effects of therapy, as well as recognizing that cost was a huge hurdle for many, that the idea of Coddiewomple really came to fruition as a way to provide financial assistance for mental health therapy in a way that other nonprofits weren't really addressing, whether that was assisting with out-of-pocket cost, co-pays, hitting deductibles, and really focusing on a group of people that may not have access to resources. So I started the Coddiewomple Fund actually last year, January 2022.
And so how do people typically get in contact with your organization to tap into some of these funds and receive this financial assistance? Because as much as the industry, the healthcare industry, has made strides recently in having this either be partially or fully covered in insurance programs, it's still a pretty common need for financial assistance just to be able to afford some of these mental health services that can be huge difference makers in people's lives. So typically, how are those financial assistances that you're providing getting to these individuals and families?
So basically, our process is that we will open applications on our website. So we recognize basically that financial assistance can come in two different ways. Individually, people can apply as an individual, whether maybe they don't have a therapist as of yet, or they have an established therapist, where they can apply, whether it's looking for assistance with copays or deductibles or, full coverage. And that really is to address the nuances of there are a lot of healthcare insurances that don't cover mental health at all, as well as finding a therapist that you connect with may not take your insurance. And so that was really the idea of addressing the individual side, that we can really meet people where they are, and whether they're already in established care, that we can just kind of supplement. And then the other side of it is that we have applications open for clinics. And so that obviously will hit a wider group of people, where clinics already have established patients, but they are facing their patients not making appointments because they can't hit the cost. And so we're really trying to hit both individuals and then our further reach of clinics that already have established patients that need additional assistance.
You can help the Coddiewomple Fund as well as get in contact with them about financial assistance for mental health services and therapies by visiting CoddiewwompleFund.org or ShareDetroit.org and searching for the Coddiewomple Fund, where you'll find more information. And you mentioned this has only been really an organization that's existed for a little bit over a year at this point, Jacki. How many people so far have you been able to make an impact on through this organization, through these assistances? Because we know there's a mass of people that are seeking mental health services.
Yes. So actually, we're super excited that our first round of giving is going to be open up in just the next month or so for the application. So we are officially launching that assistance program here shortly.
More information, again, can be found on CoddiewwompleFund.org or ShareDetroit.org. Mark that down because, as Jacki said, this is the application period is set to begin very soon, and so this is going to be quite impactful, and I would expect a lot of people are going to be applying for this funding as they seek mental health services. I got to ask, and this is the burning question, what's with the name? How'd that name come up?
Well, I wanted something catchy. I wanted something that was not just like mental health resources. And so really it was just a deep dive on Pinterest with my husband of finding something that fit. So Coddiewomple is actually an English slang word. It means to travel purposefully to a destination that's yet unknown. And that was really my interpretation of therapy. The destination may be feel less depressed or be less anxious, to just feel better. And the purposeful steps you take are going to therapy every week, as well as Coddiewomple is just like a really fun word to say.
It definitely catches the eye, definitely makes you want to learn more about the organization, and you can do that at CoddiewwompleFund.org, as well as by going on ShareDetroit.org and searching for the Coddiewomple Fund, CODDIEWOMPLE Fund. For more information. In terms of how people in the community can help, what are some ways that either individuals, families, or even mental health professionals can really help with this cause going forward, as people will be seeking these funds very soon?
Yeah, so I would say for the mental health professionals, obviously, one of the issues in the mental health space is that it is hard to find a therapist that has openings, takes your insurance. So we are actively trying to create a resource center. So if you're a mental health professional that knows that either, willing to offer your services pro bono, or that you just know that you have openings, please reach out. And we would love to be the bridge for individuals and healthcare professionals to find one another. As to individuals and families, we have a lot of different things in the works. We have a volunteer day scheduled for April 23rd at the Ann Arbor District Library, where we will be assembling journals. And that those will be donated across school campuses, because we recognize that students right now are really struggling, and having additional tools are really what is needed. And then also we have our annual fundraiser that will be in August. And then we are going to be at the Detroit Tigers and have a mental health day at the ballpark where ticket sales will be used. The funds for the ticket sales will be used to donate to the Coddiewomple Fund. And all that information can be found on our website or on our social media.
The Coddiewomple Fund can be found at coddiewomplefund.org for more information, as well as ways that you can contribute to the organization and help their mission each and every day. You can also send them an email at thecoddiewomplefund@gmail.com or call them 248-912-8327. All that information is listed on their website at coddiewomplefund.org. Jacki, just another minute with you before we'll need to wrap things up today, about 45 seconds left. Anything else that we haven't mentioned that would be important to keep in consideration at this time?
Basically, I just want to echo the mental health sentiment for those that are struggling. Just want to say that you're not alone. There are people that care, that understand what you're going through, and that there are people waiting to help. And then I guess for the people that may not be in the throes of it and they're looking for something to find agency, one is just to really have those open conversations and let's work towards making mental health a little less taboo. And I really believe collectively as a community and bigger than that, as humanity, that we can really drive change to make mental health a topic, a conversation that people are comfortable having, as well as that we can drive change to make mental health therapy affordable and accessible.
Coddiewomplefund.org is their website, or sharedetroit.org to learn more about them and 330 plus other organizations in our local area. Jacki, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
That is going to do it for this week's editions of the Megacast. You can always keep up to date with us on our website at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Big thank you to each of our guests today, as well as to our crew, Jared Clark at the studio of My Michigan TV, and our director, as always, Calvin Brown, here at Civic Center TV. That's our shows for this week. Until next time, take care of each other, and we'll see you very soon.